No one could have imagined that a simple ball could unite the world. It didn't begin with a whistle or a crowd, but with a vision that nations, torn by distance and pride, could find equality in a single game. The idea was as mad as it was magnificent, but in 1930 it became real. The harbor of Montevideo buzzed with ships carrying dreams from across the ocean. 13 teams, amateurs, dreamers, adventurers, answering the call of a brand new competition. The first FIFA World Cup. No television, no sponsors, no millions watching, just raw belief. The stands trembled as Uruguay faced Argentina in the final. Two nations divided by rivalry and pride. The crowd roared, papers fluttered, tension thick as smoke. Argentina struck first. The stadium leaned toward heartbreak. But then came the second half, and the change of fate. Uruguay struck back. Once, twice, then again. Hector Castro, the one-armed striker, delivered the final blow. The whistle pierced the air. Uruguay had done it. The smallest country in the tournament had conquered the world. And just like that, football wasn't a pastime anymore. It was power. It was poetry. It was proof that heart beats empire. No one knew it yet, but a dynasty was stirring in Europe. 4 years later, Italy took the stage. In 1934, they hosted under the watchful eye of Benito Mussolini, who saw football as a weapon of pride. The world watched as the Azzurri fought through storm and steel. Every match felt like a battle, every tackle a declaration. Italy triumphed, led by Vittorio Pozzo's discipline and Giuseppe Meazza's brilliance. But champions never sleep. In 1938, in France, Italy did it again. Back-to-back winners, the first to ever do so. Pozzo's men defended like soldiers, attacked like artists. Their triumph echoed through the streets of Rome, a symbol of dominance in a turbulent world. And then, silence. War swallowed the planet. For 12 years, there was no World Cup. No stadiums, no flags, only fire and loss. But even in the darkest nights, the dream of football survived, kept alive by soldiers and children kicking cans in the rubble. When the world healed enough to play again, it turned to Brazil, a nation of rhythm, music, and hope. The year was 1950, and the Maracanã, a brand new colossus, stood ready to host more than 170,000 souls. Brazil needed only a draw in the final match against Uruguay to be crowned champions. The whole country was already celebrating, but football loves cruelty. In the second half, Uruguay struck once, then again. Alcides Gigia's goal sliced through the noise, and silence fell on the Maracanã like a funeral. Brazil lost 2-1. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a national wound. Among the millions grieving was a boy named Edson Arantes do Nascimento, who would one day promise to bring that trophy home. The world would know him as Pelé. Before that promise could be fulfilled, another miracle unfolded. In 1954, in Switzerland, West Germany rose from the ashes of war to face the unbeatable Hungary, the mighty Magyars of Puskás, Kocsis, and Hidegkuti. Everyone thought it would be a massacre. But football doesn't care for scripts. The Germans fought back from 2-0 down. Rain poured, mud flew, hearts broke. The final whistle came, 3-2. West Germany had won. The miracle of Bern, they called it. For a broken nation, it was more than a trophy. It was rebirth. But in 1958, destiny found its true face. A 17-year-old stepped onto the world stage in Sweden. His touch was silk. His smile pure lightning. Pelé. He scored twice in the final as Brazil danced to victory. The world fell in love. The samba had conquered football. 4 years later, in Chile, Brazil returned, and even without Pelé, who was injured early, they dazzled again. Garrincha, the joy of the people, dribbled defenders until they forgot their own names. Brazil defended their title. Football was no longer just played, it was performed. Then came England, 1966. The home of football finally ready to claim its own creation. The final at Wembley was pure theatre. England against West Germany, 2-2 after 90 minutes. Extra time. Geoff Hurst, charged forward. A shot, a bounce, a debate that would last decades. Had it crossed the line? The referee pointed to the center circle. Goal. Moments later, Hurst struck again. They think it's all over. It is now. The words became immortal. England were champions of the world. But glory fades fast. 4 years later, in Mexico, the world witnessed perfection. Pelé's last dance. Brazil's 1970 team was more than a squad. It was a masterpiece. From Rivellino's flair to Jairzinho's goals, every move was poetry. In the final, they demolished Italy 4-1, ending an era with a smile and a samba. Pelé lifted the trophy high, the king crowned forever. Yet football, like life, always moves on. The 1970s brought a new kind of brilliance, cold, calculated, mechanical. West Germany's Franz Beckenbauer redefined defense, commanding games like a general. In 1974, the Germans hosted the tournament and faced Johan Cruyff's Netherlands, the apostles of total football. The Dutch passed, pressed, and pirouetted their way through opponents. It was supposed to be their coronation, but Beckenbauer and Gerd Müller had other plans. The Dutch led early. Germany equalized, then struck again. The trophy stayed in Munich. Germany had broken the revolution. Cruyff left the field in disbelief. The most beautiful football ever played, undone by German efficiency. In 1978, Argentina's turn came, and the tension was thick enough to choke. The nation was under a brutal military dictatorship, and the world questioned everything about that tournament. But once the ball rolled, the noise drowned out the fear. Mario Kempes became a hero, scoring twice in the final against the Netherlands. The stadium erupted. Argentina had its first World Cup, and an entire nation found a moment of escape. Then 1982 arrived, a carnival in Spain, the tournament of Zico, Socrates, and Falcao. Brazil's team that year was art. Every touch was a painting, every goal a song. But beauty doesn't always win. Italy's Paolo Rossi, fresh from a ban, turned redemption into legend. His hat-trick against Brazil in the second round stunned the world, and he carried Italy to their third World Cup. Rossi, once disgraced, became divine, but nothing could prepare the world for what came next. 1986, Mexico. The sun burned, the pitches cracked, and one man took over the planet. Diego Armando Maradona. Against England, he scored with his hand. The hand of God. The world gasped. Minutes later, he scored again, dribbling from his own 5:30 defenders. The goal of the century. The two sides of genius in a single game. Argentina went all the way. Maradona lifted the trophy, defiant, electric, immortal. No one had ever owned a tournament like that before. It was as if football itself had bent to his will. But 4 years later, the world watched him fall. 1990, Italy, a grim defensive tournament where tactics strangled flair. West Germany faced Argentina in the final again. Maradona cried as Germany won 1-0. The age of emotion was fading. The age of discipline had begun. Then came America. 1994. The World Cup crossed the Atlantic for the first time, bringing football to a land of different sports. Yet the passion spread like wildfire. Brazil's Romário led his side to the final against Italy. After a scoreless game, it came down to penalties. Roberto Baggio, Italy's hero, stepped up. The ball soared over the bar. Brazil were champions again. 4 titles, the kings of the beautiful game. By 1998, a new host, a new story. France. Under the Eiffel Tower, a multicultural team carried the hopes of a nation. Zidane, Henry, Desailly, Thuram. Faces from every corner of the world united in blue. The final brought the giants. France versus Brazil. The world expected samba. Instead, it got Zidane, twice with his head. Zizou became immortal as France won 3-0. Paris exploded with joy. Black, blanc, beurre, black, white, Arab. France had found its unity through football. The 20th century closed in Asia. Korea and Japan hosted the 2002 World Cup, a symbol of global expansion. The magic was wild. Underdogs Japan, Korea, Turkey, all reaching new heights. But in the end, the story belonged to one man, Ronaldo Nazario. 4 years earlier, in the 1998 final, he had suffered a convulsive episode on the eve of the match, played anyway, and lost. Many said he was finished. But in 2002, with his shaved head and fire in his eyes, he returned with vengeance. 2 goals in the final. Brazil beat Germany. The 5th title. Ronaldo cried, "Redemption complete." 4 years later, 2006 brought a final for the ages. France again, Italy again. Zidane's last dance. In the 7th minute, he chipped Buffon with a Panenka penalty, elegance personified. But as the match dragged to extra time, tempers burned. Marco Materazzi said, something he shouldn't have. Zidane turned, head-butted him in the chest, and was sent off. The world froze. Italy won on penalties. Zidane walked past the trophy, not defeated, but human. Football, once more, had written a story too perfect to invent. By 2010, football had a new rhythm. The sound of vuvuzelas filled South African skies. Waka Waka echoed from every corner. For the first time, Africa hosted the world. And fittingly, it was a story about persistence. Spain, long called underachievers, finally clicked. They passed the ball like silk, suffocating opponents with tiki-taka precision. Iniesta scored in extra time against the Netherlands, tore off his shirt, and screamed to the heavens, Dani Jarque, siempre con nosotros. Spain, after decades of heartbreak, were world champions at last. But glory doesn't stay. In 2014, Brazil's turn to host again felt like destiny. The ghosts of 1950 waited to be buried. The people believed. Neymar shone, until injury took him out. In the semi-final, they faced Germany. 90 minutes later, the world was silent. 7-1. Brazil's humiliation was total. A generation watched in tears. Germany moved on, clinical as ever. The final, Germany versus Argentina. Extra time. Mario Götze brought down the cross on his chest and volleyed home. "Show the world you're better than Messi," his coach had said. He did. Germany were champions for the 4th time. By 2018, the balance of power was shifting again. The giants were aging, the patterns were breaking, and a new generation was ready to take over. The tournament landed in Russia, a stage of frost, fire, and rebirth. Germany, the defending champions, fell in the group stage. Spain collapsed. Brazil stumbled. It was chaos, beautiful and unpredictable. And from it all, a young French team rose with swagger and speed, led by Didier Deschamps, himself once a captain turned coach, joining the same rare club as Zagallo and Beckenbauer. France blended youth and control like never before. In the final, they faced Croatia, the smallest nation to reach that stage since Uruguay in 1950. Croatia had fought through extra time in every knockout match, carried by Luka Modric's heart and will. But fatigue met fire. France unleashed a storm. Pogba, Griezmann, Mbappe, names that echoed the future. Kylian Mbappe, just 19, ran like lightning through the defense and scored with the confidence of a legend. France 4, Croatia 2. The blue flag rose again over Moscow. 20 years after Zidane's triumph, France had reclaimed their crown. Football had found its new heir. But destiny was not finished writing. 2022, Qatar. The first World Cup held in winter. The most controversial, the most modern, and perhaps the most emotional tournament the world had ever seen. Stadiums built from sand and steel shimmered in the desert. It felt like the end of an era, one last dance for the old guard. Lionel Messi had carried Argentina for nearly 2 decades. Every time he got close, the world reminded him he wasn't Maradona. Every miss, every final lost, every tear, all led to this. Argentina arrived in Qatar with doubts, but something had changed. They were a team, not a burden. Their tournament began with disaster, a 2-1 defeat to Saudi Arabia. The critics circled, but Messi stayed calm. "We know who we are. he said quietly. And from that day on, Argentina played as if possessed. They fought through each round, Mexico, Poland, Australia, the Netherlands, every game harder, every goal heavier. In the semi-final, Messi's smile returned as they dismantled Croatia. There was one step left. The final, Argentina versus France, the champion against the dreamer. Messi versus Mbappe, the present versus the future. The first half was Argentina's masterpiece, intensity, hunger, beauty. Messi scored. Di Maria danced. 2-0. It looked finished, but football never ends early. In the 80th minute, Mbappe exploded. A penalty, 2-1. Seconds later, a volley from heaven, 2-2. Extra time, Messi scored again, 3-2. Then Mbappe, defiant, scored his third, the first hat-trick in a World Cup final since 1966. 3-3. 90,000 people stood in disbelief. Penalties. Emiliano Martinez, the man who had fought his way from nothing, became the wall of destiny. One save, then another. And when Montiel buried the final kick, the world erupted. Messi fell to his knees. After 36 years, Argentina were champions of the world again. The boy who once looked too small had carried an entire nation to heaven. "We suffered, but we did it," Messi whispered. The crowd lifted him onto their shoulders, just as they once did Maradona. The circle was complete. From 1930 to 2022, the story of the World Cup is more than a list of winners. It's a chronicle of humanity, of heartbreak and glory, of unity and pride. Each nation left a fingerprint on history: Uruguay's defiance, Italy's discipline, Brazil's artistry, Germany's precision, France's rebirth, Spain's elegance, Argentina's emotion. No two victories are the same, yet they all speak the same language, the language of belief. Because in football, as in life, it's never just about the trophy. It's about the people who chase it, lose it, and rise again. The World Cup is not a tournament. It's a time machine, a place where generations meet, where every whistle echoes through a century of dreams. And somewhere right now a child is watching those highlights. Pele's smile, Maradona. His run, Zidane's calm, Messi's tears, and whispering, "One day, that will be me." The story will never end. It just waits for the next name. So tell me, which moment will you never forget? And who, in your heart, is the greatest World Cup champion of them all? If you loved this journey through nearly a century of glory, make sure to subscribe, because the next story is already being written.